Hello and welcome back to HEMA Fight Breakdowns. Today we got another armored fight, and we're going to be talking about, I think, is a very basic technique that, as far as I know, doesn't have a name in any real effect book of any kind that I know of. But basically, it's a classic in armored fighting of any kind, and I'm just going to call it rowing the boat, which is basically where when you have two hands on a single object, you're sort of doing a paddling motion where you're attempting to sweep your opponent's arms and guards out of the way with one end of your weapon while then presenting the other end. And I think you'll see a couple good examples of this here. So that's pretty much exactly what I'm talking about. Right there where we first engage, I present my guard up primarily because my opponent here had been sniping people in the face all day with one-handed thrust with both the spear and the poleaxe, and I wanted to avoid that right off the bat. So I engage here, and if you notice what I do with my left hand here, I basically do a paddle motion backwards while putting the tip of my weapon down with the intent of then doing a thrust to the face. My opponent sort of does a hanging parry thing, and they end up doing a very similar motion here, another rowing motion. But they do it a little bit better than me because they do what is the most important reason why you do this technique, which is to get your arm on top of someone else's arm and push it down. So as he pushes my arm down, my guard is basically gone, and I can no longer present my point into his face or neck. At this point, he's trying to push my arm down. He can't quite get it down. I think part of this is because he's choked so far down on his weapon that he doesn't have that little like 5-6 inches of stick at the end to leverage under my arm. But honestly, either way, he does eventually get a dominant position there, and he starts throwing a butt strike towards my face, and I do the opposite. I start rowing in the other direction to try to change the angle. And now my butt of my weapon is presented. However, because he's choked so far down, I have no right in this position that I'm in right now. I have no control over his movement, and he takes advantage of that and his long, basically his long choked up grip to sneak in a headshot right around the side, while I'm trying to present the tip of my weapon. But once that lands, he goes for another one, misses a little bit while I'm trying to figure out where I am for a second, and luckily I get my guard up in time to dodge this spear thrust here. So I do another rowing motion. I present my tip forward again. And the exact thing that I wanted to avoid this entire time happens almost immediately, which is a one-handed poke straight to the face. Though he was very, very good at throwing these, not just throwing them, but pulling them back and getting his hand back on his weapon quickly, which is the hard part of that. I think a lot of people have the ability to throw out a one-handed poking thrust, but the problem is if you don't get your handle on your weapon, um, you might have landed that shot or you might have missed it, and now you have nothing. So another rowing action here as I attempt to defend myself. But I make a mistake, and instead of pushing down onto the hands, I let that butt strike sneak in under here and get, luckily, just past my head. But at this point, he's got his left hand on my face, and he's preventing me from getting any side of my weapon to present because he can pull up on his weapon and keep it from getting anywhere. So here, I try to kind of swing it around, but because of the grip that I have, I can't really do anything with it. And eventually, my opponent jams me up, pushes me back that little bit, and gives himself the room to once again start asserting the butt of his weapon. So that's just a little demonstration of what the purpose and, in my case, what the failure of that kind of row the boat strategy can be. And hopefully it's informative as to why, when you see people fighting with these weapons, their hand positioning and how far up or down they are choked on their weapon is extremely important. Most of the time, you want these little bits of weapon appearing on either side of your hand placement, specifically so this rowing technique can gain a lot of purchase and get a lot of leverage. All right, that's going to be it for today. If you'd like to see your own footage featured on the channel, feel free to send me an email at HEMAFightBreakdowns@gmail.com. Thanks, and have a good one.